Hi everyone, my name's Tim. It's good to meet you today. Does this work better with the microphone? Is that okay for hearing? Because I can go with or without it, so comfort level is good. Okay, all right. I have some preliminaries to get through. We ran into the unexpected today, so I had a lovely slideshow prepared for you. If you will write this email address down, I will send it to you if you want it. So it's Tim, T-I-M, at speedofinsight.com. That's all one word, lowercase. Tim at speedofinsight.com. And then we'll also have the luxury of being connected as well, so we can keep this conversation going after the session, which is going to move really fast today. We got to get through all this in 45 minutes. So Tim at speedofinsight.com. I'm very honored to be included in the company of presenters here. There's so many accomplished creators and artists and business. Yes?
Sorry, quick question. Is it Insight as in
Insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T.
Okay, G-H.
Yeah,
Okay,
speedofinsight.com.
Sure which site it was.
So if you look on the Wikipedia test for a notable person, I fail every single criterion on that list. However, I have been lucky to have had some fun jobs in radio. Worked as a line producer for an ABC affiliate in Phoenix, and my last radio job was for an NPR affiliate where I hosted a classical music show full-time during the week, and then I got to write and produce arts features on the side in that job as well. So that was really fun. I'm working on an audiobook project actually for a freelance client right now. I got hired through just a chance acquaintance from when I was working with Nick, some guys that were a potential software vendor to our company came up with a marketing book that they finished, a hardback and a paperback and an ebook edition, and now they want an audiobook. So I'm going to do that project for them. I've got a lot of material to cram into the 45 minutes here, so I really want to gear it to the needs of the group here. So if you would, for me, before the end of the session, if you would write down your number one goal, your number one personal stretch goal as it pertains to audiobooks. And then if you could also write down the number one obstacle that you have. So think about this end state that you envision a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, wherever you want to be in the world of audiobooks. What's the biggest thing that's kept you from doing that before now? And we'll talk about that towards the end of the program, because I want you leaving here inspired and fired up and believing in your capability that you can break into this market. There's room for you if you really want to do it. If you don't take anything else away from our time together today, I hope you remember that. All right, so by show of hands, let's do a quick assessment so I can tailor the rest of my notes to what you really need today. How many of you have already done an audiobook project by yourself before? Okay, handful, yeah, so 4 or 5. All right, and how many of you have worked in some kind of, any kind of voiceover field or narration before? Okay, so we've got several, okay. So, and how many have a desire to actually do your own audiobook or do one for somebody else? Okay, that's the whole room. All right. Now, let me ask just a couple more qualifying questions, just so I know. I've got things about gear, I've got things about the voice, I've got things about the creative process. So, how many of you today are you feel like you've got the voice part figured out, you just want to get the rig set up? Okay, just a couple. How many of you are really looking more for coaching about the delivery, the actual voice, the instrument itself? Okay, a little bit more. All right. And then how many others have the equipment and everything else and you're just interested in some process tips? Okay, so it's pretty evenly distributed today. So what that means is I'm going to use all the slides, and I'm just going to do them really, really fast. So the reason I want you to keep that email address is because it's not going to be possible for us to cover everything today, but I would like to make myself available to stay in touch with you, and if I can either answer a follow-up question for you. Were you here last year?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. You look very familiar.
Thank you.
All right. And also, what's your name?
Byron Kraft.
Byron? Okay, my name's Tim. Byron was my dad's name. That's great. All right. So I would like to keep this conversation going with you. So if I can either answer a follow-up question, or better yet, if I can refer you to somebody smarter than me who can get you that answer, I would love to be available to do that. So the audiobook market. I said early on in my preamble that there's room for you, and there really is. This is a rapidly growing pie, and there's absolutely no reason, if you can carry on a conversation in a normal tone of voice, why you shouldn't be able to deliver your own audiobooks and find a niche in this market that'll work for you. $2.5 billion is a kind of an industry estimate in what people spent on audiobooks. I'm an Audible junkie. I always have a couple going in my car or on my phone, wherever I can. You too? Okay. And it's grown in the last year or so. And these numbers are fuzzy, but general industry estimates, 36% growth, which that kind of double-digit growth is pretty uncommon when you notice that our gross domestic product is only growing by 2 or 3%. So that's significant, and that should be an encouragement for you. There's a big inspirational quote that I was going to have up there, and you'll get it in your email. I love to say that only the talented worry about mediocrity. There's already people that have all this blind confidence, and they're not waiting for you. They're putting stuff out there. If you care about getting it right, that's going to automatically put you in an upper percentile, just because doing a good job matters to you. So that is another reason why you should take permission to do this. Let's talk about the voice for a second. I said a moment ago that if you can carry on a conversation in a normal tone of voice, you have all the tools that you need to be able to record and produce audiobooks. It's just a matter of learning to control your breathing, be very conscious about your breath. Also learning to relax, because I'm probably showing you all kinds of physical tics right now that I'm not even aware of. That, you know, like if you've seen like the gym rats when they do those overly heavy arm curls, and they tend to throw it up with their back muscles to cheat for the bicep. We have a tendency to do that with the human voice as well. And so it's learning to become aware of the cheats that we use to maybe try to artificially control our tone. Has anybody taken a photography class before? Quite a few. Yeah, that was one of the most fun classes I had in film school. And one thing I learned about there, I never really mastered it, and I couldn't explain it to you today, but I was really fascinated with depth of field and how some things in near field or far away can be in or out of focus, depending on how you set up the aperture and stage the shot. Well, the voice, the human voice, also has depth of field. And so I can thin out my tone and make it really forward like this, or I can also be overly spooky and run it to the back. And for just conversational delivery in an ebook setting where you want your listener to be more aware of the content than they are of you, we try to get that kind of central placement in the depth of field, just a relaxed kind of open tone. And so there are things that we can discuss. The only other way around this, I wish I could tell you that there's a shortcut. Buy a cheap digital recorder, pick a piece of paper with any words on it that are relevant to you, and make it a habit make a promise to yourself that every day I'm going to read a page, half a page, whatever it is, into that recorder. I'm going to listen back to it and take notes on myself. The first day that I worked in radio, I was horrified to hear played back to me what my voice sounded like. Now, after years of doing it, I've gotten used to it, and it doesn't really freak me out anymore. But because of the bone structure, behind our faces, the resonance in our ears is going to be different than what people hear in the outside world. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated by that. You sound just fine. And if you want to try reading something, if anybody's really brave, I brought a page from the audiobook, actually, that I'm working on. If anybody wants to try it, and we'll do some notes at the end, maybe we can do that. So think about that. I'm not going to put you on the spot for another 25 minutes. Breathe, relax, practice. And the last one is the most important. You have to read every day to get used to the sound of your voice, to get used to your own delivery and begin to pay attention to things like your tone and your pace, how you're using the different notes available to you in the normal range of your speaking voice to be able to emphasize key parts of the passage. And again, what we're trying to do as audiobook artists is to remove ourselves as much as we can from the experience so that we're not taking people out of the book. That's the main goal. Once you have the page in front of you, another secret to success in audiobooks is to really take ownership of the script. A lot of times, I don't know if you're like me, but I have a certain amount of reverence for the written word. And I was yelled at a lot for marking up in books, and now I'm a terrible bookmarker. I circle things that I don't know about. I make notes in the margins when it reminds me of another story, and I want to be able to recall that connection later on. For voiceover artists, it's an essential skill. You've got to always have a sharp pencil with you. And what you want to do is underline the parts of the passages that you really want to emphasize, because you want to create a sense of gravitation. You also want to remember to breathe. In this presentation, because I'm so excited about talking, you will hear me running out of breath a lot. And when you're in a recording session, that's something that you want to be conscious of. And it's something that, just like, you know, the elements of a golf swing, I have to remind myself of that all the time. So a pencil on your script is a great way to just be able to put you can put a slash between the words or like a giant apostrophe over the place, but remind yourself of the places where you know you're going to have a long passage and you want to really fill up your tank so that you don't run out of air just at the moment that you want to give that word extra emphasis and make it bigger for the listener. Remember that we're editing for the ear. I talked about the sacredness of the text. And sometimes authors will put something on the page that looks really good. But when you try to say it out loud, it just doesn't work. So I can't think of an example on the fly right now, but do take the liberty sometimes that if you find a word that's just tripping you up and you're on take 3, change it. Mark a substitute word on the script in there that's going to work better, and it's going to be easier for the listener to pick up. Once upon a time, probably before many of you were born, you have to Google things that I lived through. That just feels so weird. I got to take a master class with a big-time choral guy in Los Angeles. His name was Roger Wagner, and he did all these legit classical choral music albums. And so he agreed to do a workshop for our college choir. And he walked us through preparing a piece of music for performance. And I thought, wow, this really applies to audiobook recording. He talked about getting awareness of a sense of gravitation. So in any particular paragraph, in any particular sentence, there's going to be an important thought that you want the reader/listener to take away. It's underline that word or highlight it in some way, because you want to, for the listener, create a sense of gravitation that everything in that preceding passage is leading up to the delivery of that word that you want to have the most impact, that you want to be the most memorable for them. So mark up your script, chunk it down into breathable, readable sections. Be sure to edit for the ear, and don't be too hard on yourself if the passage is too awkward, because remember that it was written for the eye. So you have license to make minor changes, to edit it for the ear, and then remember a sense of gravitation. The final technique, and this was one of the laugh points that I planned in the meeting. The final tip said cheat, because you can use equipment to cover up a lot of. It's like a golf handicap. You know, you get a few free strokes at the beginning of the game, and if you have the right equipment on your side, which doesn't have to cost a lot of money, by the way, you can make your performance every bit as good as the ones that you hear every day on Audible. Now, we're not going to beat out Edwin Herman or anybody like that, but you can deliver the perfectly acceptable and desirable product. One of the tricks is to get a better microphone. I recommend, you'll see a lot of the higher end and even prosumer retailers and equipment manufacturers pushing condenser microphones. I do not recommend them. A really seasoned, like lifetime, movie trailer person, you'll see people like that using a condenser shotgun mic. The reason that works for them is because they have so mastered their presence and their position and just an intuitive sense of being able to stay in the sweet spot of that microphone, and also because they record in such strictly controlled environments that they can get away with the flaws that a condenser mic has, and they sound phenomenal. But for our purposes and kind of the shoot and scoot situations that we're in, it's really best to get a dynamic broadcast quality microphone. Now you can spend $99 on a snowflake, and if you hold it up to your face and have software where you can edit out some of the sibilants and the poppy Ps, all the plosives from our consonants, you can get away with a really inexpensive microphone. But other than that, let's see. I had pictures of all these. There's I had a slide on here called the $300 Studio. I'll come back to microphones in a second. So you can start with a Chromebook for $159. You can get digital audio workstation software, they call it DAW, for free if you're careful. I downloaded Audacity one time from CNET, and it took me months to get rid of all the malware that came with it. So I don't recommend that unless you're a computer person first and you can really make sure it's clean. Headphones, you can get a decent pair of closed ear headphones, which is what you want, for like around $70, $80.
Get ones with flat response.
Yes, yeah, be careful for that, not those mega bass boost ones. And a USB microphone, you can get a perfectly workable one for as little as $66. Now my rig is a little bit different from that. I had $400 Shure SM7s, and I had a 2-channel preamp and some other things that really helped me to refine my sound, which is a lot different from what you're hearing now. But for $80, $90, you can get a little tube preamplifier that has some compression built into it, and it really warms and rounds the tone of your voice. If you combine that with the proximity effect of the microphone, and this is a trait of dynamic microphones, which is another reason why I want you to stick to dynamic microphones only, is that you can the proximity effect increases the bass and mid-range and just gives your voice a more pleasing and listenable sound. It's probably not happening right now, but it works. If you don't have the money for more expensive microphones, remember you want a dynamic directional one. Shure SM7, Electro Voice RE20, Sennheiser MD421, those are all commonly used in radio stations and for broadcast recording purposes. Those are great mics, I've used all of them. You can get a very similar effect with one like this. This is mine, and you can get these for a BCD1 for like $160. And nobody except the most advanced audio engineer will be able to tell that you were using this instead of an RE20. It's really fun. To round out the rest of your home studio setup, or wherever you choose to set it up, you're going to want some broadcast quality headphones. Nick kindly reminded me about the flat response. The Sony MD, I think, is the one that I prefer to use. They're the ones that, whenever they do like a video of people in a radio station, that's always the one that they have with the little blue and red stickers on the side. I think they're like a 700 series or something, but you can get ones that'll work almost as well for a lot less money. But if you want the best, those are good. I do recommend a microphone preamp. This is the one I bought, and what I did, the factory tube sounds just fine, but I actually bought an upgraded aftermarket tube for like 20 bucks and changed it out, and it really warmed it up a lot. So these are just simple hacks that you can use to give yourself an advantage. The only other pieces would be a little USB mixer. I bought a Behringer, a little 4-channel one, for like 80 bucks because I was trying to save money. it will work, but it requires a lot of rigging to do it, because that particular model, there was a design flaw, and a design flaw that doesn't allow you to monitor what's going into your digital audio recording. So you have to just watch the meters and trust that it's going in there. Only then, after you've recorded and you listen back, can you tell if it's what you wanted and it's not optimal. You want to be able to monitor the signal that's going in there so you can tell if there's a problem. So for $30 more, I could have had a Mackie Pro FX4 that does all the same things, and it just would have worked. And it's a USB mixer that plugs right into your computer. All the drivers are there. If you have, say, your audio software, like use Studio One, right, Nick? Mm-hmm. That's my dad's name.
PreSonus.
Okay, so yeah.
So PreSonus Studio One.
Studio One, yeah.
Yeah, and PreSonus has some really good the devices.
Yeah, their mixers are really good too. So there's so many options there, and I don't, for today's purposes, I don't want to confuse the issue on too many. Hi.
Hi, quick question. So you mentioned a microphone preamp, and then how's that different than the mixer? Like, what do they do?
The Mackie mixer, and I think PreSonus maybe has those too, I'm not sure, but some of them have built-in preamps for instruments and microphones. I have just found you can get away with that, but the signal isn't quite as strong. And so what happens is that you end up having to boost the microphone so much to get a usable signal on the meter that you're also bringing up the ambient noise along with it, and it just makes more work for you later when you're trying to edit. So if you get the external preamp, that's going to boost and warm up that signal. It'll come into your mixer really hot, and your voice is now going to be way above the noise floor, and it's just going to improve your quality so much more.
A couple more things with that. So he's talking about a tube preamp, and most of these big mixers that he's talking about have their digital analog, their converters inside of them, the preamps, and it gives a little bit drier sound, and the tube preamps give it a little bit more liquid, it's more vibrant, and it sounds more real and more alive kind of thing. And so that's another reason to do the external preamp, just to boost your signal.
Thanks, Nick. And good question. What's your name?
Melanie.
Melanie, I'm Tim. In case you didn't hear that bit, Tim at speedofinsight.com.
Melanie your father's name too?
No, that was my mom's name. That's such a weird coincidence. Thanks for helping me out with that. All right.
Can I ask, this might be like heresy or something.
If you tell me your name first.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, hi.
Hi.
That was my mom's name.
Your other mom. So, can I just use an iPhone?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can.
How quality-wise, I mean, have you, I just listened to an audiobook and I contacted the person who recorded it and said, how did you do this? Because I know her, and I thought, I don't think you have a studio. And she said, I've sat in my closet with an iPhone. And I thought, seriously? Like, that sounded really good. And maybe my ear is just not well trained, but I listen to Audible like 24/7. So.
No, the quality of some of the handheld devices is continuing to go up and up and up, and what that's doing is democratizing all forms of media. So when I list some of these equipment options, I'm not saying it's the way you have to do it. What I'm saying is that it's the shortest path to get you to the quality level that you'll need to upload to Audible. So their ACX portal has specific standards, and so they will judge the material, and they will reject files that don't meet those standards. So you just have to have, you can record it on any device you want, but you just have to make sure that you have some way of knowing what the sample rate is, and the having, be able to assure consistent sound levels throughout the entire recording. Yeah, I mean, go for it, with any device that you have. Was there another question over here? Okay, all right, that was a scratch. All right. All these things that we're talking about, we can simplify it and remember that the overall goal is to keep the listener in the experience as much as we can. The goal of all of these things is not to win some award or reach some big achievement standard. It's to remove as many things as possible from the project that would tend to take people out of the experience. That's what we're trying to do. Sorry, Nick?
To be transparent
Yeah, very much so.
process.
So 3 areas that I recommend to guarantee a good listener experience, and this is going to feed into what we need for Audible, is to think about the quality of the recording. So you want your voice to be clear and significantly above whatever noise floor is in the environment that you're in. You want to have clarity so that your speech is easily understood and not distracting in some way. And then finally, to think about the format. I mentioned that to make it Amazon ready, they want a monaural file, single track. They want a 192 kbps and 44.1 sample rates, so it's got to be an MP3 file. The peaks have to be in the -3 dB range so that there's no annoying spikes that are causing people to have to turn the volume up and down in their car all the time. And actually, using LTUE preamp with a little bit of light compression set, this one has a little compressor built in. You can remove a lot of those extraneous peaks and valleys out of the gate. Hi, in the back.
What's that, Ron?
This is an ART, it's called ART, and I spent $79 for this one.
Just look it up as an art.
Yeah, and you can get it from places like B&H Photo, they sell them on Amazon, Musician's Friend, Sam Ash, you can get them a ton of places. Sweetwater, Reverb. The final thing to make it Amazon ready is to make sure that the files are delivered in the right parts. So they require you to have a separate MP3 file for every chapter or element of the book, like the front matter, the end matter, anything like that. So chapter 1 has to be its own file, and you have to read the heading to the chapter in there for Amazon to accept them. Hi, yes, Byron.
In the current market, are they most of audiobooks now, are they sold as a download or on CD?
More by download. I imagine probably people still do some on CD. Like for example, if you're a public speaker and you'll do the event circuit or something like that, and you've got a book to sell about your topic, crowds at those events might be interested in buying a CD from you there at the event, or still through some type of mail order fulfillment. But more often now people are gravitating towards, the center of gravity is shifting dramatically now towards MP3 and digital delivery. So once you have your file recorded, you've got some decent equipment, you're feeling great about your voice, now you've got some tracks in your digital audio software, you got to think about things to edit. So you want to edit for time to make sure that the pace is good, there's no weird gaps in there. You want to edit for noise. If you have a software application like Adobe Audition, which is the one I use, you use that one too? Love, love, love?
Love it. It's the
Okay.
best. It's the best program I've ever used. I tried Audacity, and there was a couple other ones that I tried, just trying to find something cheap to do, and nothing compares to Audition. It's great.
And tell me your name?
Lauren?
Lauren, and next to Lauren, there was another comment. Oh, you were just seconding her? Okay. All right, it looked like you had a hand up. Okay. Did not mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, I was trying to get the lead out of my pen.
Oh, I'm always, welcome to my world, I'm trying to get the lead out. Okay. So the noise, most of those applications, if you talk to the film people here, they will tell you Pro Tools all the way, and they're equally passionate about their camp. Adobe Audition works for me. Studio One is a great option. So there's all different price points, and a lot of them do similar things. What I love about Adobe Audition is that it allows me, gosh, I wish I could show you this on the screen, but in these gaps, here, I'm going to show you.
You could just walk down the aisle.
In these gaps between the voice waveforms, even though it looks flat, there's noise in there. So what you can do in Adobe Audition, and what I do in every recording session, is to leave myself a little bit of silence and a little at the beginning and at the end, so that I always have some room tone in there. So what you can do is, under the effects menu, you can go in and just highlight this segment and say capture it as a noise print. And what it will do is remember that, it'll assign digital values to it, and it will go back through everything else that you recorded, and it will reverse out that entire noise print. So now you've got a nice clean track without any ambient noise in it, like air conditioning. There are more advanced features in there where if there was a door slam or a dog bark, you can actually grab an eraser, and without going through a whole bunch of complicated commands, you can scrub out that little offending noise. And you'll see it as kind of that lighter area on there. And so if there's just something unexpected and you don't want to have to go back and do a retake on your entire 2-hour reading, you can scrub out some of those flaws. So it's pretty fun. How are we doing time-wise? Good, we've got a few minutes. So for the editing process, we edit for time, we edit for noise, and also there's room for effects in there, and this is where you might want to just very sparingly use some equalization or again some light compression on your voice, and it just kind of evens out the highs and lows and allows you to deliver a nice round consistent tone in the finished product. So that's editing. Rebecca, right?
Yes.
iPhones. We'll talk in a minute about where you are and what your goals are, but again, what I want to stress is if you really want to do this, there is room for you and there's a way in. So I want you to take that away today. If you're not ready to just leap in and start doing your audiobooks or somebody else's, try a podcast. And you can do that with just an iPhone recording, and you can upload it to your blog site as an MP3. Try doing a webinar. If you're an expert in a particular subject, something that you want to teach, and every single one of us has expert knowledge in something that we can share with other people. And if anybody has ever once asked you a question about how to do something, then there's an opportunity for you to create like a 20-minute webinar around it and put together a little slide deck, and with your computer mic, you can or just even an inexpensive USB microphone that'll sound a little better than the one that's built in. You can read your own voice track over a slideshow and either gate it to add people to your blog list, and in exchange for their email, you can unlock that and give them access to it. But meanwhile, you're creating a body of work where you're practicing having to say something and knowing that it's for an audience, and gradually becoming aware of whatever tics are holding you back. And the quality of your delivery is going to continue to go up and up and up, but you have to do it every day. There's just no shortcut. Yeah.
Can I just take one minute to
Sure.
add something that I haven't heard you say yet? So if you're doing your own recording and you're going to do your own editing, there's a couple of tricks that will help you, and you have to make this second nature, but at first you do it mentally. So as you're reading along, you see a comma, you kind of count 1001. If you see a period, it's like 1002, and if it's a paragraph, it's like 1003. I mean, you count 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, just to have a little bit of a pause between there. And another thing that you can do, if you mess up, instead of going back and redoing the whole recording, a thing that helps a lot when you're doing the editing is you just say 3, 2, 1, and it puts a nice sharp spike in your editing mark so that you can just go right there, and then you can cut out the pieces that you don't need. And so that helps a lot when you're doing the recording, when you go back to do the editing.
Good thought. Thanks, Nick. And sometimes I'll also use a finger snap or a hand clap at a place that I want to mark, because I know I'm just going to do a pickup and go back to the beginning. And I'll see it as a nice thin stripe on the screen. I can scroll to that spot really quickly. All right. A while back, I wish I'd brought the link for you, but it's pretty easy to find. If you look for Neil Gaiman commencement address, there's a delightful video where he's talking to a graduating class of art students and has just some wonderful, welcoming advice for all of them. And as you're preparing to set up your ideal day as an audiobook artist yourself, it would be great to watch that and just get some inspiration. But towards the end, he has this really funny thing that he says about his rules for success. And rule number 1 is do good work. Rule number 2, be easy to get along with. And rule number 3, deliver on time. He said, and here's the best news of all. To be successful as an author, as a speaker, as a filmmaker, whatever it is that you do in the art world, you only have to do 2 out of 3. If you're easy to get along with and you do good work, they'll forgive you if you deliver a couple days late. And so on and on. I mean, you pick any 2, and they will carry you through the 3rd one that maybe we're not so good at. So I found that so humorous and welcoming. All right, resources for all these things. If you want to do some more reading, a guy named Ravenscraft, I forget his first name now, it's escaping me, but if you go to podcastanswerman.com, he's got a ton of free articles on there about equipment. He talks about his own equipment bidding process and his recommendations and where to source things, and he actually has complete turnkey out of the gate podcasting packages that he will sell. It's, the markup is reasonable, and if you don't want to have to do all the research, you can just buy his kit and you can be up and running overnight. Places to buy things that I've talked about today, B&H Photo consistently has really good pricing, and their delivery and stock, their inventory is great. Sam Ash out of California, Musician's Friend, which I think is actually based here. All the Adobe tutorials, if you go in there and watch all the available free tutorials on their Adobe Audition software, a lot of that information is not just specific to their product. It's just good. It's just good practice for anybody who's producing audio. So that's a really good resource. And if you want to spend a little bit, or if you have a subscription through work that you can take advantage of, lynda.com also has a ton of great tutorials. Yeah, hi, what's your name?
My name's Miranda. I just
Miranda.
wanted to mention that if you live in Salt Lake County, lynda.com is free with a library card.
Ooh, nice.
wow.
There's a one up there? Did you get that?
No.
If you have a Provo library card, it works as well.
Yeah, Salt Lake County and Provo library card. Yeah, you can get lynda.com for free, which is awesome. I did not know that, so thank you. Pro tip. Okay, I want to have time for questions. And hi, in the back. Yeah, what's your name?
William,
William, hi.
just curious, what's sort of your opinion on doing voices for separate characters?
Voiceovers and voice acting are similar, but they're separate. Go ahead.
Not quite what I meant, like if you're reading a passage. and-
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I'm not good at it. If it doesn't come naturally to you, where you're going to shift your voice for different characters in the book, I see what you mean. It can be a distraction unless it's done really well. You can do minor things like shifting the tone of your voice, maybe slightly for male or female, but I would recommend probably taking a couple of acting classes before you try it. Get in the habit of just getting the words on the paper, or maybe trying a couple of nonfiction books first. But by all means, develop characters and practice with them. Just know that unless you've had some practice, it could end up being a distraction for the reader. Hi, over here.
Sorry, in response to that, I've done voice acting work for a video game that my friend is developing. What really helps with creating character voices is to go and read like plays and screenplays and scripts and create a different voice for each character, and maybe watching the show along with reading the script, and that really helps develop those voices and the different things you can do for different characters. So.
It definitely takes the product up a level if you can do it. I think for somebody coming into it cold, it might be a little daunting, but again, don't use that as a reason not to try, because the acting classes and even taking singing lessons with a voice coach, will help you. You're next.
I'm Mike. Tim.
Mike, hi.
Is there a speed, like words per minute, that you want to read at? Because I don't think anyone listens to audiobooks at 1.0. Like, they're glacially slow if you do. So I listen to all of them like 1.5, and I go to record. I want to record at that speed, and so I feel like I'm going to be talking too fast.
People that do audiobooks full-time for a living, they think in terms of per finished hour. And so they'll quote you figures around like maybe a little over 9,000 words an hour. For me, when I'm doing commercials, the read rate comes out to about 120 words a minute. But remember, that's just a center guideline. It's not an absolute, because some of it's going to depend on the text and the pace that's required for your audience to be able to comprehend what you're saying. Nick, you have a thought?
Something to help with that is most of these DAW packages that they have time compression. So what it does, it'll compress the time and it'll still sound clear without changing the pitch. So you can look for that too. So it's probably, I would think, better to do it at a speed that you're comfortable and then use that time compression to get it so that it's a little faster. And a fact is that the human mind can understand up to about 400 words per minute. And most of us speak at around, what, 100 words per minute or something like that. I don't remember the exact
Usually
figures.
commercials are 120, 130.
Yeah. So yeah, you find the happy medium. But yeah, you can use that time compression.
Laura, you've been waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
I'm wondering what you would recommend to get started, because I know that you wouldn't want to do just any book because you could have copyright infringement. So where would you, if you wanted to start reading books and get something out there, get something on Audible or whatever, what would you recommend? Because I have a difficulty because I'm scared that nobody's going to hire me to do something if I have no portfolio. Does that make sense? If I have nothing for them to listen to. So where would you start so that you develop a portfolio to take to people?
There are websites that list a ton of like public domain materials, things that have gone out of copyright, and a lot of them are free on Kindle as well. And so you could get, say again? Project Gutenberg is another great place to look, yeah. And I would grab like a few samples from genres that interest you and just do a page and make an MP3 file and then put it up on your, is anybody on Behance here? Behance is a free portfolio website. If you go to behance.net and then / Tim McDonnell, all lowercase, spelled out TIMMCDONNELL. You can see my portfolio, and it's connected to Adobe now, and it's free, and so you can start putting work samples up there. There's also, I think it's, forgive me, I think it's voice.com. If you email me after this, I'll look it up and make sure I give you the right address. But there are a rapidly growing number of websites for aspiring voice artists out there, and you can begin uploading samples to sites like those as well, and it's a great way to get found. And then put that link on your LinkedIn and make it a part of your profile so that people know that you're available and open for business. The most important thing is just to start. Just read anything and get it out there. We've got just about 2 to 3 minutes left. Does anybody have, oh, your thought?
Do you put up any like soundboards or anything to help muffle the sound in the room as you record?
You can hang beach towels around. Like go to the thrift store or moving blankets, something like that. Go to the thrift store and get one of those collapsing screens. Put it near your workstation and just hang a U-Haul blanket over it, and that'll get you enough deadening. You can spend as much as you want to on acoustic foam and things like that, but you don't have to have that to get a good flat sound. And then also it's better for you if you have that dynamic directional microphone. So this accepts sounds from the front and it tends to reject noise from the back. So that'll help you as well. But yeah, I mean, you can get a U-Haul blanket and it'll get you started. If you want to go like a little crazier, you can get some cheap furring lumber from the lumber yard and take some of that insulation batting and stuff it inside, so you nail it together flat so that there's like a boxy kind of frame, stuff some insulation in it, and stretch burlap or any kind of fabric that looks attractive to you, and you can just like hang it on the wall like a picture. And if you get 2 or 3 of those in a, like 2 by 3, that should be enough, unless you just live in an all acoustic tile or all ceramic tile environment, like you live at the morgue or something. You should, 2 or 3 of those panels in a 2 by 3 configuration should be enough to deaden any space. Hi, what's your name?
Rose.
Rose, hi.
What was that email address again?
Mine?
Yeah.
Tim, T-I-M, @speedofinsight.com. SPEEDOFINSIGHT.com, Speed of Insight. We ran out of time for the workshopping. I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time on your goals, but if you will email me your goal and your obstacle, I would be glad to continue the conversation with you, and let's come up with an approach and get your voice out there. It's been a privilege to serve you today. I've enjoyed your company so much. Thanks for your engagement and your questions, and I hope the rest of your conference is a blast.